Now we're back in the project window, and I'm going to show you how to zoom. There's a lot of different ways to zoom into different data on the project window or in an editor, and I'm going to show you my favorite first, which is if you hover your mouse over the timeline at the lower edge of that timeline, and then you click and hold your mouse button down and drag down at the same time, you'll see that you're zooming in on the data. The more you pull down, the further in you'll zoom. And conversely, if you click on the timeline and hold your mouse button down and then push up, then what you're going to do is zoom out. So it's really easy to go to a section of the project and then click and drag down to zoom in or push up to zoom out. You can also use these zoom controllers in the lower right-hand corner of the event display. So if you move the vertical zoom controller, you're actually changing the height of the events and their associated tracks. Whereas if you move the horizontal zoom controller, then you're doing the same thing as you would do to zoom in and out from the timeline method. And then there's also the G and H keys, which we talked about earlier. The G and H keyboard shortcuts for zoom also work in the mix console in the lower zone here, as well as in the full mix console. So I'm going to type F3 here. And if I have keyboard focus here on the mixer faders, then I can zoom in and I can zoom out. And there are even more ways to zoom on the project window. So I'm going to type F3 to get back to the project window. Essentially, F3 is a toggle for viewing the mix console and hiding the mix console. But you'll notice that since we have our track height zoomed up a little bit, maybe we don't need a certain track to be as high as the others. So if you hover in between the boundary of two tracks, then you can click and drag to make one track shorter and the other tracks taller. Or if you hold down the Control or Command key while you're moving that boundary, then they'll all zoom up and down. And that makes it easy to adjust all the track heights all at once. And then if you are zoomed in really far and you want to just get back to viewing the entire project, you can come to this little drop-down menu and you've got a couple of other options for zooming to full or zooming to the placement of your locators. And we'll get to locators here in a little bit. But if I click on zoom full, then it will zoom in to the boundary of all of the events that I have in this project. Since this project is only 6 measures long, it just zooms into those 6 measures. If it was a 100 measure song, then I would be able to see all 100 measures because it's the length of the events in the project that determine where full is. There's also a keyboard shortcut for zooming to full, which you can find under the Edit menu and going to the Zoom settings here. Here you can find all of the different types of zoom controls. Zoom full is Shift F, and that's one I use a lot. But feel free to go through these other settings to see how you can zoom in and zoom out of all of the data in the project window. And next, let's talk about different types of tracks.